British politics has never lacked drama. But recently, it's taken a darker, almost cinematic turn, and not in a good way. A third person has now been charged over the arson attacks on properties linked to Prime Minister Keir Starmer. That's right. 3 suspects, 3 sets of charges, and a serious investigation that's starting to feel less like a security matter and more like a full-blown crisis. The latest suspect is a 34-year-old man from North London who appeared in court under heavy security. While his time in the courtroom was brief, the stakes couldn't be higher. The choice of Westminster Magistrates' Court alone shows just how seriously this is being treated. He joins 2 others already facing charges in what seems to be a coordinated attack on one of the country's top political figures. What began as a single shocking incident has now spiralled into something far more calculated and far more dangerous. At this point, it's no longer about a single man's actions. We're talking about a network, a motive, and a political climate that seems to be spinning out of control. This isn't one suspect acting alone. Now, there's a trio, and not the kind you want to see in headlines. Alongside the North London man are 2 others, a 21-year-old Ukrainian national and a 26-year-old Romanian, both from Romford. And yes, that detail has raised eyebrows. What is it about Romford? Coincidence or convenience? Either way, it's become an unlikely focal point in one of the strangest political crime stories of the year. The earlier suspects have already faced magistrates, one in mid-May, the other just a few days later. And like the latest arrest, their cases are being sent straight to the Old Bailey. That's not where minor cases go. That's where the country's most serious, high-stakes trials are held. The timing, the patterns, the locations, it's impossible to ignore. 3 separate individuals, all accused of taking part in the same alarming chain of events: arson, property damage, and threats to life. It paints a picture that's hard to dismiss as random. And with each new arrest, the question grows louder: how deep does this go? Now let's look at exactly what these men are accused of. This isn't vandalism on a campaign poster or shouting in Parliament Square. These were deliberate, destructive acts. Between May 8th and 12th, 3 separate fires broke out at properties linked to Keir Starmer. First, a car went up in flames on a quiet street in Kentish Town. The very next day, a fire was started at the front door of a property in Islington, reportedly with people still inside. Firefighters had to rescue someone trapped upstairs, and just when it seemed things couldn't escalate further, a third blaze struck another Kentish Town location, once home to the Prime Minister himself. Each fire happened under the cover of darkness. Each targeted a place connected to the same political figure. And each has now become a critical piece of evidence in a case that could have national implications. These weren't random attacks on buildings, they were a message, and not a subtle one. The physical damage may have been limited, but the psychological impact is still smouldering. With the pattern impossible to ignore, the investigation quickly moved beyond local authorities. The Metropolitan Police handed control to their counter-terrorism command, the very division that handles threats to national security. That's a serious shift in tone. This isn't being treated as just a string of arson attacks. It's being investigated as a possible coordinated attempt to endanger lives, specifically the life of the sitting Prime Minister. According to the charges, the suspects didn't act alone. Prosecutors allege they conspired with each other and possibly with others not yet identified to set fires with the intent to cause harm. That phrase alone carries weight in legal circles. It signals planning, collaboration, and far more danger than simple property damage. And then there's the kicker: others unknown. It's legal shorthand, but it means investigators believe the circle could be wider, that more people might be involved, either planning or already taking part. In other words, this case isn't over, not even close. While Karma has, thankfully, remained unharmed. These incidents have sent alarm bells ringing across Whitehall. This isn't just about one politician. It's about the rising risks faced by public officials in today's climate. The UK has already felt the tragic consequences of political violence. The murders of Joe Cox in 2016 and Sir David Almess in 2021 remain etched in the national memory. Those events changed the way Britain thinks about the safety of its elected leaders. Now, with multiple arson attacks targeting the Prime Minister's former homes, the conversation has flared up again, no pun intended. Security measures for senior politicians are likely under review right now. That could mean tighter surveillance, reinforced residential protections, and new protocols for assessing threats. Because if someone can walk up and set fire to a political leader's front door, what else might they be willing to do? The public may never know the full extent of changes happening behind the scenes, but there's no question that these incidents have forced the government to re-examine how vulnerable its officials truly are. One attack could be dismissed as reckless, 2 might raise suspicion, but 3, across multiple locations, involving multiple people? That's not random, it's coordinated. Each fire happened within days of the next. Each suspect is now connected to the others by more than accusations. They share timeline, method, and target. This wasn't a spontaneous act of passion. It appears to be a deliberate campaign aimed at one of the country's most prominent political figures. And that raises tough questions. What drove this? Political ideology? Personal vendettas? Influence from outside the country? With 2 of the suspects confirmed as foreign nationals, speculation is already swirling. Without a confirmed motive, the public is left guessing, and that uncertainty only heightens the tension. One thing is certain. These weren't opportunistic acts by random vandals. They were calculated, organised, and executed in a way that suggests careful planning. The legal system will eventually sort through the evidence. In the meantime, the public and press are left staring into the smoke, wondering who else might be involved and what their ultimate goal is. All 3 suspects are now scheduled to appear at the Old Bailey on June the 6th. That date could prove pivotal. It's not just a legal formality, it could be the moment when all the speculation finally comes into focus. There may be new evidence, new names, or even a fuller picture of what this trio, and possibly others, were really trying to achieve. For now, the nation waits. Starmer's government faces immense pressure, not just politically, but personally. These attacks have crossed a line few imagined would ever be tested in modern Britain. And in a political landscape already stretched by division, distrust, and rising public anger, this case is adding fuel to a fire that's hard to control. The court date is set for June the 6th, and it could change everything. Between May 8th and 12th, 3 separate fires erupted at properties linked to Starmer. First, a car was set ablaze on a quiet street in Kentish Town. The next day, a fire broke out at the front door of a property in Islington, reportedly with people still inside. Firefighters had to rescue someone trapped upstairs, and just when it seemed the situation couldn't escalate further, a third blaze struck another Kentish Town property, once home to the Prime Minister himself. Each fire occurred under cover of darkness. Each targeted a location tied to the same political figure, and each is now a key piece of evidence in what's shaping up to be a case with national implications. These weren't just attacks on buildings, they were a message, and not a subtle one. The physical damage may have been contained, but the psychological impact is still smouldering. With the pattern impossible to ignore, the investigation quickly moved beyond local authorities. The Metropolitan Police handed control to their counter-terrorism command, the division responsible for threats to national security. That marks a serious shift in tone. This isn't being treated as a string of random arson attacks. It's being investigated as a possible coordinated effort to endanger lives, specifically the life of the sitting Prime Minister. According to the charges, the suspects didn't act alone. Prosecutors allege they conspired with each other, and possibly with others yet to be identified, to set fires with the intent to cause harm. That phrase alone carries serious weight in legal circles. It signals planning, coordination, and a risk far greater than simple property damage. And then there's the kicker: others unknown. It's legal shorthand, but what it really means is that investigators believe the circle could be wider, that more people might be involved, someone else could be planning or even already participating. In other words, this case isn't over, not even close. While Karma has, thankfully, remained unharmed, these incidents have sent alarm bells ringing across Whitehall. This isn't just about one politician. It's about the growing dangers faced by public officials in today's climate. As we wait for more details, one thing is clear: these attacks have crossed a dangerous line. What's your take? Could this be just the start of something bigger? Share your thoughts in the comments, but keep it civil. For the latest updates as this story unfolds, hit subscribe, tap the notification bell, and stay with UK Tribune, where facts meet insight.